certificates, PGP does not require users to use public key certificates. So instead it follows what is called a web of trust model, which means if I send say something from A to B encrypted with say a message encrypted say with the private key of A, right? To decrypt this, B needs the public key of A, right? So with the certificate model, what would you do? You would send the public key certificate of A. So that's what we will see in S-MIME. But for PGP, B doesn't require a certificate signed by certified authority. As long as someone B trusts tells that this is a valid certificate of A, valid public key of A, B will go ahead and use it. Okay? So it's a web of trust model. So it's like peer-to-peer. So if there's another user who tells B, I am kind of telling you that whatever the public key that A sends is a valid public key, then B will go ahead and use that public key. It does not require a public key certificate as such. Okay? So it's a web of trust, okay, that way. And so let's go ahead and review PGP, which we went through last time anyway. So it can be used to provide confidentiality, authentication, and both. So let's see first authentication. So the key thing we have to remember is this kind of statements. You don't need to really memorize these diagrams, but it helps you to understand how things work. Okay? So to provide authentication, so authentication means what? You want to make sure the message came from a particular sender. That's what you want to make sure, right? So the way PGP does that is, you want to send the message, so you put the message, and along with the message, you compute the hash value of the message. So the hash value means if something changes in the message, the hash value should also change, right? So it's like a check for the integrity of the message. So along with the hash value of the message, or actually you encrypt the hash value of the message with the private key of the sender. So this is like what is the digital signature. So when you encrypt with the private key of the sender, nobody else can do that. Only the sender knows its private key. So the hash value of the message is encrypted with the private key of the sender, and that is sent along with the message. So it's basically a message along with its hash value. Like when we used to do the network scores, we send a message along with its checksum. Like that, we send a message along with its hash value. The only difference is the hash value is now digitally signed by the private key of the sender, or with the private key of the sender. Okay? Now, as you do all this encryption and everything, there will be a chance of increase in message size, right? Because you're not just sending the message now, you're sending the hash value and it's encrypted and all those things. So to compensate for the increase in message size, PGP uses a compression model. So it doesn't send the message and all these things as it is, it compresses them and sends them. Okay? So zip is like the protocol or the software or algorithm basically used to compress a message. So that's what PGP does. So it sends the message along with its encrypted hash value, everything compressed. So now when the receiver gets this, what it has to do first? It has to, first step it has to do what?
Unzip.
Huh? Unzip. Because everything is now compressed, so you have to uncompress or unzip. Okay? So that will be the first step. So if you look at from a sequence of steps point of view, as I say here, or if you want to write down on the top, to send, you put the message along with its hash value, encrypt it, and send it. So this is the order in which you send. The order in which you receive and process would be what?
You have to
receive, you have to unzip it. So this is the first thing. And then, of course, once you unzip it, you get the message. And then what you do, you compute the hash value of the message. Right? So that is the second thing you will do. You compute the hash value of the message. Why you compute it? Because you will then decrypt this with the public key of the what? Sender. So you decrypt with the public key of the sender to extract the inner encrypted hash value. And then you compare the two hash values and they should match. So if the two hash values match, it means the message came without any corruption. Okay? So it kind of provides integrity also, but mainly we are looking here for authentication, because if someone else kind of came up with a message, right, they could change. If someone else wanted to kind of confuse the receiver, they could come up with M prime, a different message, okay, a malicious person in the middle, and they could come up with a hash value of M prime, okay, but they cannot sign it with the private key of the sender, right? Only the sender can do this. So which means all they can do is change this M to M prime. They cannot touch this part, they cannot go to this side. So when someone changes M to M prime and sends all these things, right, when the receiver gets it and computes the hash value of M prime, the hash value of M prime should not match with the inner encrypted hash value of M. So by that way the receiver can find out that the message has changed. Okay? So the kind of corruption could be detected, but you cannot prevent the message from losing its integrity. Anyone can change the message. So that's why this doesn't guarantee integrity. You could, but still make sure that the message, detect the message got changed. But the key thing it provides you is authentication. Why again? If everything came through without any change, still you are using the public key of the sender to decrypt and extract the inner hash value, right? So if it was not signed by the corresponding private key, if it was signed with some other private key, when you use, you see the private key and public key has to match, right? So if I use a particular private key, I have to decrypt with the corresponding public key. You know that by now, right? So if the message hash value is encrypted with some other private key, and I use a different public key, the extracted hash value will be basically a junk value, isn't it? So if you have a message or its hash value, for example, and I encrypt with say some private key, say just for example say 8 or something, I have to use a corresponding public key, say some 12, say some just as an example, to decrypt and extract the hash value. But if it was encrypted with some private key 7 and I use the public key 12 to decrypt, I won't get this. You know, in the RSA case, you will probably get some other number, right? When you do a decryption with a different public key, you won't get back the same plain text, you will get something else, right? When you don't use the right public key for the corresponding private key, you won't get the same plain text, you will get some other plain text. So that's actually a junk, right? So that hash value will not match with this hash value that came along with the message. You know, because you get the message and you compute the hash value, right? That hash value will not match with what you try to decrypt, because you're not using the right public key. Yes?
So it provides confidentiality?
No, it doesn't provide confidentiality because the message is in plain text.
Okay.
It provides you authentication, because if you use a wrong signature basically, right? So if you use somebody else's signature, private key, and the receiver thinks it came from another sender and tries to decrypt with that sender's public key, it won't match. Right? So that's why it provides you authentication. That only if you use a corresponding public key corresponding to the private key, the hash values will match. If you use a different public key, the hash values will not match. Right? So it provides you a kind of authentication that the message came from that sender. You see what I mean? If the hash value is encrypted with the private key of user A, I have to use the public key of user A. So if someone encrypted with the private key of say some malicious guy, say C or some bad person, I use the public key of C, right? Instead of using public key of C, if I still use the public key of A to decrypt, I won't get the inner hash value. I'll get some other junk value. And the two hash values will not match. Right? Isn't it? When you did RSA, I think there was a question where someone said, I asked you to encrypt plain text 8 or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then asked you to decrypt ciphertext 6, and that person called me and said, I got something 37, the ciphertext didn't match, right? So there I just want you to do independent things, but what I meant is if you encrypt this with a private key say some private key and you got some 37, if you use the corresponding public key, you will get back the 8. If you use a different public key to decrypt, what you will get?
A different number.
A different number, right? If you use something or some other public key that doesn't go with this private key, you will get different number. That's all I mean here. So you will get a different hash value that will not match with the original hash value. The original hash value is derived from the message, and this came from the decryption process. So the two hash values have to match. So if they have to match, you have to use a right public key, which means it has to be encrypted originally with the right private key. And only the sender knows the private key. Nobody else knows the private key.
But
So, yes.
let's say, for instance, this did happen, and they just lose the message, right? Once they found out it's not
Yes.
not the message just lost.
Message is lost. So this way, it provides authentication, but it kind of could is liable to a kind of denial of service attack, because someone could keep on changing messages here and make the hash values not to match. So the receiver will not at all accept any message and keep dropping them because the hash values don't match. So it's not a good strategy to send this way, because even though it provides authentication, the receiver keeps on detecting the error in the message and keeps on dropping them. So it's always better to make it confidential by using what you're going to see, by enforcing encryption of the message. Okay. So nevertheless, as you see here, there are some, there's a hashing done here, there's an encryption done here, there's a compression done here. So what PGP requires you is to use a specific algorithm for each. It recommends you to use SHA-1160 for hashing. This 1160 is basically the size of the hash value. So if you take any message, it could be even a 10-bit message or 20-byte message or 1,000 kilobyte message. The size of the message doesn't matter. Okay, what matters is the hashing algorithm and what is the size of the hash value it is designed to produce. So SHA 1160 normally means the algorithm is by name SHA, and it has several forms. It can produce, there are versions that produce you 512 bits of hash value, there are versions that produce the 64 bits, and so on. So it recommends you to use 1160 bits. Okay? So that's why you see here, even though you want to send a 100-byte message, this message itself could be only 100 bytes. The hash value could be this many bits. So see, that's why there's an increase in the message, okay, size. So that's why it goes through this compression process to compensate for the increase in the message size. Okay. And similarly for encryption with the public key and private key and all these things, it recommends you to use this RSA and then the zip algorithm for compression. So you can use several other algorithms also for compression. RAR and all those stuff are also out there. Okay. Any question? So the next idea is to use this for confidentiality. So when you want confidentiality, the idea is to go for encryption. So what you do is, here, again, sometime back I told you, you don't encrypt a huge message with using public key encryption, because public key encryption is slow compared to symmetry key encryption. So when you want to send the actual message, you would prefer to use symmetry key encryption. But if you use a symmetry key, the secret key is supposed to use to be encryption and decryption has to be known to both sender and receiver. So the strategy used by PGP is to make the sender generate the secret key randomly and send that secret key along with the message to the receiver. Okay? So when you do the project, you keep on typing some random characters and also open up the web browser and visit some website, because it's like a kind of random number generator. It needs a kind of what is called entropy. Entropy is like a seed value. If you use random number generators, it takes a seed value, right, to generate a sequence of random numbers. So likewise, the generator used to generate the secret key needs some kind of randomness in the system. So it wants the user to have some activity going on in the background, like visiting a website or downloading something or keep typing some characters, and all these things generate some randomness in the system called entropy, and that is used to generate the secret key. Okay. So the sender generates a secret key kind of on an ad hoc basis, just like when it's about to send a message. And what it does is, it first of all compresses the message and then encrypts that compressed message with the secret key. Okay? So it's basically compressing the message with encrypting the message with the secret key. Instead of encrypting the actual message, it encrypts the compressed version of the message with the secret key. So symmetric key encryption. And so now for the receiver to decrypt this, it has to know the secret key, right? So in order to help the receiver to do that, the sender sends the secret key along with the message. So obviously you cannot send the secret key as plain text. Anyone who listens to a channel can get the secret key. So you have to send it in a secure fashion. So you encrypt the secret key with the public key of the receiver. So why you encrypt the public key of the receiver? Because to decrypt, you need to know the private key of the receiver. So only the receiver can decrypt this. So that's the idea. So you send the message encrypted with the secret key. And the whole thing, so in order to do this decryption, you have to know the secret key. So you send the secret key in an encrypted form, okay, which can be decrypted only by receiver. So if you want to again know the order in which it is sent, processed at the sender side, you could say it is compressed, and then you generate the secret key and encrypt this, and then you do this. You encrypt the secret key with the public key of the receiver. Okay, so the whole thing is put to these two parts. So this is one part and this is one part. You can append them and send to the receiver. So at the receiver side, which will be processed first?
The encryption and private key?
The decryption, this
Yeah,
one,
decryption.
the decryption of the private key. The receiver has to decrypt with its private key to extract the secret key. Once it gets the secret key, it can use that to decrypt this part and extract the compressed message. And then it has to decompress that message and extract the actual message. So this will be the first one. So then this will be the second, and this will be the third one. And that's what this diagram indicates, tells you. Okay? But if you remember this, that's good enough. Get a statement of how you process the sender side and the receiver side. So now it provides you confidentiality because nobody except someone who knows the secret key can decrypt this. And nobody can know that secret key except the receiver because it's encrypted with the public key of the receiver. So only the receiver can decrypt with its private key. So it provides you the confidentiality. But it doesn't provide you authentication. Why? Anyone could generate the message, encrypt with the secret key, they could generate on their own and encrypt that with the public key of the receiver. So it doesn't tell you that, it doesn't provide scope for the receiver to make sure that it came from the particular sender. Right? So it doesn't provide the authentication. Okay? So if you want both, if you want confidentiality and integrity, just put these two things together. So that's what we do in the third scenario. So if you remember the first one, this was the first one. Which part is, this part is actually the first one. Okay? So this provides you authentication. Right? So the message the actual message along with the encrypted hash value, the private key or the sender, it's like a digital signature, so it provides you the authentication. So now to get confidentiality, what you do, you encrypt the whole thing because the message is not in plain text. You don't want to send it as it is. It provides authentication but not confidentiality. So what you do, you encrypt the whole thing with the secret key that you generate randomly. And then encrypt the secret key with its public key of the receiver. So this part is the same thing. Okay? So the secret key is generated for every message. So it's not generated once and used. So that also increases the difficulty for someone to break this and extract the actual message. So the secret key is generated on a per message basis. Okay? So it's not like you generate once and use it forever. So now if you want again the order in which you will pack things, so on the center side you need to first, you could do a little bit of here and there in either way. So one order will be like put the message along with compute its hash value. So that's probably the first one. There's nothing to do with the message, right? Compute its hash value, encrypt the private key of the sender, and then put all these things together, do the compression, and then generate the secret key and encrypt them with the encrypt the whole thing with the secret key, and then do this. So this could be one way, right? So first do the inner thing, and then do the outer encryption with the secret key, and then the public key of the receiver. Then to unpack all of this, what would you do? Which one you should try first?
Encrypt with the public key of the
Decrypt, right? Because
Decrypt.
you cannot do anything with this, because in order to extract the inner thing, you need the secret key, and the secret key is only here. So you have to decrypt with the public key of private key of the receiver, get the secret key, decrypt this, get the inner one, uncompress this, get the message. So now decrypt with the public key of the sender, then compute the hash value of this message and compare the inner extracted one with the two hash values, and they should match. Okay? Like I show here, the two hash values should match, and then only you can accept the message. Okay? Alright, so any question? So almost the same idea is with this S-MIME standard. You just have one, so this I think we cover a little bit, but let me go to it. So we have a session key for every single message, which is secret key. And the symmetric key algorithm that is used is this IDEA. Not sure what is the full form of this, but like DES, this is one of the symmetric key encryption algorithms. Okay, and this is the random the key generator. This is the protocol or the program used to generate the secret key. So you need to keep typing keystrokes and all these things. Now, if you notice here, in this situation, or even in the simple authentication stage, when I encrypt the message with the private key of the sender, right, the receiver has to know the public key of the sender to decrypt it, isn't it? So either the sender has to send its public key certificate or its public key or something, right? Because how does the especially if the sender has multiple public private key pairs, the user could have multiple public key private key pairs, right? So which public key of the sender will the receiver use to decrypt? You see, because the receiver cannot figure out from this, because this will be the encrypted form. So the sender has to tell somehow which public key to use, right? So public keys are normally, like as you did in your project, it's going to be reasonably long. So there is something called key ID. So along with this, the sender will have to send some key ID. So key ID will indicate what public key to use for decryption. So it is typically the least significant 64 bits. So the public key is, say, some 200 bits long or more than that, something like that. The least significant 64 bits will form the key ID. So this key ID will uniquely identify the remaining portion of the public key, and the receiver can use this key ID to find out which public key or the sender to use for decryption. So this will be useful if the sender normally has more than one public key private key pair. The sender has to tell which public key of itself has to be used by the receiver to decrypt. You see what I mean? So if I have multiple public key private key pairs and I use one of them, right, to encrypt and send you, you have to know which of this pairs you have to use to decrypt. So for that, I don't send my whole public key, I send only the least significant 64 bits of my public key along with the message. So using that, you have to, you could figure out which public key of mine you have to use. But still the assumption is the receiver has the public key of the sender, right? So how is that public key validated? By the web of trust model, which means you don't have to have it certified by a certifying authority. As long as someone in your group or among the user groups that says that this is a valid public key, you go ahead and use that public key. So it doesn't need to be certified by a certifying authority. Okay? So that is what is PGP. So same idea is there with S-MIME. The only difference is here the public key certificate is sent along with the message. So if you see, this provides again both confidentiality and authentication. So
Didn't you say this was the one that most emails use?
S-MIME is one is used mostly in the emails because it comes along with normally all the web browsers and everything. Okay, so and it provides some flexibility in what encryption, decryption algorithm and the symmetric key algorithms to be used. So it doesn't really constrain you to use some particular algorithm. So it's up to the users to choose. Okay. So if you look at this, this is the actual message to be transmitted. It's the same thing like we just did. Why? Because this part, so this is the message encrypted with the secret key or the session key, right? And the session key is generated on a per message basis, or it could be for a session if you want to. So, but still the sender has to tell that to the receiver. So that has to be encrypted with what? The public key of the receiver, so that only the receiver can decrypt it, right? So same thing that we did before. And this provides you what? Confidentiality, because this encrypted with the session key, nobody knows it, and the session key can be decrypted only by the receiver with its private key. So it provides you confidentiality, but it doesn't provide you authenticity that it came from that sender. So what you should do, generate a hash value of the message and encrypt that hash value with the private key of the sender. So this is like a digital signature telling that it was signed and sent by the sender. So the same thing that we saw for PGP, these three components. Okay? So only additional component is when I want to decrypt this, receiver has to know which public key to use, as we just discussed. So here, the receiver explicitly sends the public key certificate. The sender publicly sends it, explicitly sends the public key certificate. But again, sometime back I told you, it's not a good idea to send your public key certificate in the open, in the sense that you don't want anybody else other than the receiver to get your certificate. So you encrypt the public key certificate with what? The public key of the receiver, right? So only the receiver who knows its private key can decrypt this and extract the certificate. Okay, so you don't want your public key certificate to be known to unauthorized users or unintended users at least. So the decryption process or unpacking process will be the receiver has to decrypt with this private key, extract the public key certificate of the sender, and from that it will extract the public key of the sender and get the hash value. So that is one part. And then for this part it will decrypt with its private key, extract the session key and use that session key to decrypt and get the message, and compute the hash value of the message and match with the hash value here. Same idea, right? Not here. Encrypt the message with its session key. So this is one part. And then the session key is encrypted with the public key of the receiver. So only the receiver can decrypt this. And then compute the hash value of the message and encrypt with the private key of the sender, so it's like a digital signature. and then encrypt the certificate to the public key of the receiver. The public key certificate of the sender encrypted with the private key of public key of the receiver. So these are the four